Hi, everyone. Welcome to our presentation of our project at the bottleneck at the Port of Los Angeles. So here are my teammates. We have Vinuki Fernando, who will be discussing about the impact it had on supply chain. And just to add, she will be also talking about how it improved human welfare. And next one, we have Shalin Chera.
Hello.
So Shalin will be talking about how the bottleneck at the port happened. And next one, we have Christopher Little.
Hello.
So Chris will be talking about the solutions of the case study, and I'm Anna Marie Salas. I'll be discussing about a short introduction and a brief history of the Port of Los Angeles. Next slide, please. So here we're showing you like a graph from Google Maps, just to see where the Port of Los Angeles is. So it is located at the San Pedro Bay, which is a premier gateway in North America. And it is one of the busiest seaports in North America as well. So it is also considered as the busiest in the Western Hemisphere. It is 25 miles south of downtown Los Angeles with 7,500 acres of land and water and a 43-mile stretch of waterfront or coastline. Next slide, please. So as I have mentioned, it is one of the world's busiest seaports. It is also named as #1 port for 23 years since 2000. And it is also connected with the Port of Long Beach, which is about 6.8 miles far from it. And it says they're also holding the record of 10.7 million 20-foot equivalent units or TEUs in 2021. So it's like, as I have mentioned, they are considered one of the busiest. So I imagine the trade and the market that's happening at this place every day. So who would have thought that a major backlog of container ships would happen at this very strategic place in North America? So next, I'll be giving the floor to Shalin.
All right. So how did the bottleneck happen? So the bottleneck was primarily caused by manufacturers and retailers accelerating orders to satisfy the demand for Americans due to COVID-19. All the imports from many companies around the world all came at once and was bottled up, and therefore technical issues arose. So as I said, it was also caused by a technical issue connected to the rapid imports coming in from retailers to help COVID-19. And the technical issue caused trucks and trains to be halted several hours before entering the port. Drivers inside the port also waited several crucial hours to exit the port because of the technical issue. I will now send it over to Christopher Little to talk about the solutions to the problem.
So there were a few solutions that were proposed. I'll just be discussing a few of the more prominent ones that were discussed with regards to this situation. So you can see there, the first point I have is expanding port operations to 24/7 capacity. So this solution was one of the more talked about ones, and on paper it makes sense because if you have the port running 24 hours, more ships are able to dock and more cargo is able to be moved, which would relieve some of the backlog that's there. However, the only issue with this one is that it kind of creates its own little microcosm of logistics issues, because in order to operate at 24/7, the port would have to look into hiring more workers, specifically nighttime workers, more truck drivers, more equipment operators, and then they also have to coordinate with the businesses they work with, so warehouses, their suppliers, trucking companies. So this was one of the more talked about solutions, but it wasn't actually implemented just because of all the other logistics issues that would arise from that. And then the second solution that's mentioned there is more of a long-term future solution, whereas it's more to prevent something like this from happening again. And it was something that was discussed in the United States. And so the point there just states about increasing domestic manufacturing. So kind of repatriating some of those operations that are overseas and bringing them back to North America, so that, you know, if a situation like COVID-19 ever happened again, we wouldn't be so reliant on foreign manufacturing, therefore wouldn't have to wait so long for products to get here, and then that wouldn't cause such a backlog at the ports, as well as trying to limit a shortage of vital goods. And then relating to the first point there, just trying to reduce dependence on foreign countries. So those were two of the more talked about solutions. And then finally here, the third one, which is kind of what's happening now, is just allowing the situation to play out and give the system time to correct itself. So there's a quote underneath there, which I'll read, which states that Sea Intelligence, a Copenhagen-based data firm, released a report saying that it would take about 8 or 9 months at the time of this article being written to kind of have these disruptions iron themselves out. So just, and I think that's the solution that typically works in most of these cases, where you just kind of let the situation play out and you kind of suffer these short-term consequences and in order for like long-term gain. And I believe when we were reading at one point, like the peak of number of ships that was waiting to port was about 109, and since then it's dropped down to, I believe, about like the mid 70s. So just given the giving time for the situation to correct itself is usually the best course in these kind of situations. And I will now pass it over to Vinuki.
So talking about how the event impacted supply chain, the port of Los Angeles was one of the most critical trade hubs that handled a significant portion of Canada's imports and also exports. So the bottleneck event caused disruptions in trade routes, which resulted in delays and backlogs at the port. This basically led to another impact, which was that it caused delays in shipment of goods. So the increased wait times for cargo added costs for the importers and exporters. So most of the Canadian businesses that relied on timely deliveries of goods, such as retailers and manufacturers, were affected by this event. So the impact of the event felt globally as well, since it was and still is one of the busiest ports in the world. The delays caused by the event led to disruptions and product shortages, affecting the availability and pricing of goods in various regions. For example, there were shortages of products such as electronics, furniture in North America, Europe, and also in Asia. The delays and shortages also resulted in higher consumer costs, which increased costs were due to the higher transportation costs, as well as the cost of storing goods for long period. For example, when the goods were delayed, transportation companies had to use more expensive transportation methods, such as air freight or express shipping, to meet the delivery deadlines. So this basically increased the transportation costs, which were then passed on to the consumers. And when the goods were delayed due to the event, the goods had to be stored for a long period of time in warehouses and also in distribution centers. So the cost of storing goods for an extended period of time was high, as it involved renting additional storage space, maintaining optimal storage conditions, and also because they had to be paying for additional safety measures. So moving on to the next slide. So in this slide, I'll be talking about how it improved human welfare. The supply chain disruptions caused by the event highlighted the need for better technology and processes to improve the efficiency and flexibility of supply chain. This led to increased investment in innovation and technology, resulting in the development of new technologies and solutions that can help prevent similar events like this in the future, and resulting in faster delivery times, lower costs, and also ways to access easier to basic commodities and services. Another positive impact that the event had was that it ultimately led to easier access to basic commodities and services for individuals around the world, as well as lower prices for products by improved competition. So the supply chain disruptions caused by the event led to increased competition among businesses as companies sought to find alternative supply chain solutions and new ways to deliver the products. This competition ultimately led to lower prices for consumers, which made it easier for individuals around the world to access the basic goods and services. So next, Hannah will be concluding our presentation.
So as we close our presentation about the bottleneck, currently we are still experiencing a bit of the backlogs, although the peak of the container ship backlogs was in September of 2021. And it all started way back in October 2020 during the COVID-19 lockdowns. It was believed that the maximum numbers of the container ships reached up to 109, but with recent reports, it has been like down to, let's say, 50 or 60 ships right now. Other container ships have also queued way to south of Mexico, or like they have rerouted other ships to the Gulf of Mexico, or even the East Coast, just to give way to decrease the bottleneck. Or we can also consider this, let's say it's like a bullwhip effect, but not of orders, but it's a bullwhip effect of the backlog. But anyhow, with further studies, or the analysis and the strategies of supply chain professionals, we were able to manage, or they were able to find out ways, or with what Chris has discussed, some solutions in order to break down the backlogs or the problems that they have encountered with the supply chain industry. So anybody else, would you like to add with our conclusion? No more. So please allow us to give this opportunity to every one of my teammates, Christopher, Shalin, and Vinuki, for spending time or allotting their efforts with this research and presentation for our logistics class. Also, further with our slides, we can show our references. So here are some of our references as well. And it's quite a lot. We have 2 pages of references on our slide. And we'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our professor, Mr. John Skelton, in sharing your expertise and information with logistics and with the rest of supply chain. And also, we would like to thank everyone who's going to watch this presentation. Thank you for allotting your time and for listening to us. Thank you. And
Thank
have a
you.
great
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.